What's up guys, so here we are back at Quake Combat, and today I have a special guest that we have had in the past before, and he always gave us great advice, great information and great techniques. Carl Van Roon, it's great to have you back.
Thank you, brother.
Today guys, we're going to go over some problems that I've actually experienced in my career quite a lot. I was always obsessed with being able to kick really high. To be honest, I never really put any effort or any work into it. I just tossed my leg as hard as I could and hoped to get up there. I was always under the impression that I had to stretch to kick high. This was like pretty much thinking back to Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? I could see him on the two seats doing the splits.
Yeah, exactly.
He can kick really high. I was like, I need to do that, and then I will kick high. And then I spent a bit of time training with Carl. Carl can obviously kick super high, being an expert in Taekwondo and just being the man at kicking. And so I was like, teach me to kick high. And Carl told me what any fighter that has progressed as far as I have in my career would hate to hear, and is that you're weak. My hips were too weak, so it wasn't completely based on flexibility. A lot of it was based on strength, and the outside of my hips were not strong enough because I never lifted them up and had my leg up kicking like Carl does. And so Carl was here today to help us be able to kick higher, and yeah, I'm really excited because I've forgotten quite a few of them, so I'm going to learn it again as well.
Oh, fantastic. So let's get started. Because we're going to just learn about how to chamber our leg properly for a basic roundhouse kick. Now, in kickboxing, sometimes it's done a little bit differently, or in Muay Thai. But in terms of Taekwondo, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our knee just a little bit above our foot. So that would be in a position like so. So if I was kicking towards the camera, I'd be extending and coming around this way. If I was doing it out to the side, I'd be coming this way. Now, you might say, oh, but I don't really kick like that, with that sort of like flicky motion. Now, even if you don't use that kind of flicky motion, even if you're doing like a Thai kick and you're following through, for example, rotating through this sort of position, the way that your hip is internally rotated and your supporting foot has to pivot still means that you need to get through that range of motion. And one of the problems that people have, like Brad mentioned earlier, is they just sort of think, I'll just chuck my leg and use a lot of momentum to get it there. It makes it very difficult to be precise. I would really encourage you to try to get the type of precision where you can put your foot exactly on somebody's chin, exactly on somebody's liver, exactly on somebody's solar plexus. What I was thinking was we would start with just like the basic chamber. We're going to try to keep our body upright. And it's not just your legs that need to get strong, like Brad said earlier, but we need to also strengthen the side of our body. We need to strengthen our core, we need to strengthen our back. And you'll often end up cramping and things when you first try this. As a basic starting point, we're going to stand with our supporting foot. The foot that we're going to be standing on is going to be facing back towards the wall. Now it doesn't have to be 180 degrees turn to the wall, but a little turn back to the wall. Probably maybe 45 degrees back with something like that. You might go slightly further depending on your own anatomy. I'm going to bring my knee up to the side. The most tricky one that people tend to have trouble with is kicking directly to the side, so directly lateral. And then that's when people have like real groin strain, you know what I mean? Or they feel like when they kick, their body has to go down low to compensate. What we're going to learn is we're going to learn about how to lift our knee directly to the side and keep our back straight. In some ways it looks very much like how a dancer would lift their leg. I'm trying to keep this whole body part here, this whole trunk area, completely stationary, and then lift, right? Yeah, that's the one. Exactly. So what we're going to do is we can keep our hand on the wall to start with, and we're going to chamber. We're going to keep our weight just off and just maybe just slightly touch with the ball of the foot. And let's just lift our knee up to the waist height and keep the foot slightly lower than the knee, right? So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my other hand in a position where I can perhaps jab and perhaps I can just maintain some control. A lot of time what you'll see is you'll see people twist and they'll kind of seesaw their body like that. Now that will make it easier, but it will also telegraph your kick. So if I wanted to kick towards Brad and I seesaw my body like this, it's like a tell, right? If I can keep my body straight up and just lift it without showing him what the target's going to be, think about it, then he's not going to be able to see it easily. So let's try that together. Let's crunch here so that we pull our side of our body towards our leg, lift, and our upper body won't actually flex like that, but it's the feeling of that, right? So we lift and down, 2 and down. So this is a really basic way to start. If you're throwing a roundhouse kick, then you want to lift your knee with your heel back to your butt. If you're going to throw a side kick, then you'd lift your foot in line with the opponent. So you'd be coming up like that. That's used for things like if we're both in a stance, things like an oblique kick here, going to the knee, or a side kick to the body, so that's keeping the foot in the line. So something to consider from that side of things. The next step would be extending your leg out and creating a bit more weight because you're extending the lever arm there. So this time we lift up that same chamber, right? Knee back to the, heel back to the butt, nice and tall, and we're just extending out, 1, and back in 2. 1, and back in 2. As you get more advanced, you might go a little higher, but when you start, it's more important to have great control. For myself, if I was doing it, I'd put my knee up higher, but I'm still thinking about the form as I'm doing it. To start with, you may even just start like just below the belt and just get familiar with that feeling. That's great. So what's really good right now with Brad is he's keeping his chest and shoulders all in alignment. His pelvis is in a stationary position, and he's just extending in and out.
And my ass cheeks are cramping.
We can also do that movement faster, which is a machine gun kick. So then we kick like this, right? Or we can do it without our hand on the wall, which is another progression. So I'll take my hand off the wall, I'll keep it here, and I'll either machine gun kick out, or I'll add a movement to it, a bit of like a travel, right? This is kind of getting into the realm of point sparring or point fighting karate or taekwondo. Definitely less useful for full contact style sparring or fighting, but nevertheless, it forces you to develop more dexterity, balance, coordination, and precision for your kicking game. Those are some basic progressions for the machine gun kick side of things, and the basic roundhouse kick chamber. You'll use that chamber when you come through. So if I'm throwing a roundhouse kick towards the camera, if I'm bringing my knee across like this, then I end up in that position that we finished with. Or if I throw it from the front, if I throw a switch kick here, I'll do this. Or if I do what I would call a running kick or a skipping roundhouse kick, I'll end up in that position there. I don't have to roll it all the way over, of course. I could also kick up on more of an angle if I want to kick up and under somebody's guard. If Brad's in the southpaw and I'm in the orthodox, it could be up and under like this. I could roll right over like this. I could kick through the center here. There's many different angles I can take with it, but being able to have the precision to be able to control it will mean that if I want to change target or feint, which Brad does awesomely with his hands, he'll misdirect to set up like a telling shot with his hands. It's the same thing with the feet. If I have the control of my hips and my body, if I wanted to change, for example, from a front kick into a classic question mark kick like this, I have the control to do that easily. If I want to change from the look of a high kick, but actually I kick his body, I have more control, I have more balance, I have more precision. Okay, the next drill we're going to look at, we covered the first drill we covered was with our roundhouse kick coming around. This time we're going to look at a side kick. So what you're going to do is, it's basically like a stomping motion. You know, like if you stomp the ground, you're stomping like that, or you're squatting and you're extending your hips like this, that's pretty much the motion that we're trying to strengthen. So if I want to get good at, for example, if Brad comes around this way, if he's in orthodox, let's say, and I'm going to stomp, say to his knee or to his body, if I want to stomp to his knee, I'm going to stomp like this, or I'm going to stomp to his body this way, right? Or even if I'm going to spin through, and I'm going to kind of use a stomping action with that back kick there, spinning back kick. All of those require this movement. So if you want to get good at those, you want to do this drill. Let's give it a try. So what we'll do is we'll come over to the wall now. I'm going to bring my leg up, but this time there's going to be a slight difference, a slight variation. Rather than bring my heel back to my butt, I'm going to bring my knee more back towards my chest and my foot flat. So I'm parallel with the ground. Now I'm going to extend that out, and then I'm going to bring it back in. Good. So Brad goes again, he's going to extend it out, and we use this position called the foot sword, where we slightly, yeah, that's it. And then he's going to bring it back in. Good. And he's going to extend it out, and he's going to bring it back in. And he's going to extend it out, and he's going to bring it back in. Beautiful. Relax. Now when I'm coming up, I'm going to lift my knee back towards my chest, and simultaneously I'm going to flick my heel up towards the opponent. So I'm going to aim my foot sword, which is the lateral edge and heel of my foot. I'm going to aim that at the opponent. I don't want to lift my knee high first and not have the weapon facing them. I want the weapon facing immediately towards him. So if you look at a fighter like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, when he's southpaw, he'll fight in a bladed stance. When he's orthodox, not as much. So when he's southpaw, he's always got this ready. He's got that point karate background where these type of weapons are really useful for him. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get that bladed foot. So let's have a little look. I've got my hand on the wall for support to start with. I flick my heel up, and I let, as my foot comes up, my knee kind of counterbalances and goes in the opposite direction. We call it internal rotation of the hip. I'm going to lift and I'm gonna go from the heel. I like to call it like a puppet string. So if Brad put his foot down, it's like I'm gonna pull that up by a puppet string. Exactly, good. And at the same time, there'll be another string on his knee, so they're both gonna come up, that's it, and down. So if I was gonna throw a fast side kick, it would look like this. I'll puppet string this up, and it will pop out. That's my side kick. So I lift up through here, and I'm gonna practice just going out slowly and back into full extension. So the way to start with that is slowly in and out. As you get better, you can take your hand off the wall, and this will really, really develop your side kick. Okay guys, moving on to number 3. We're gonna look at a basic like side kick pulse. So we're gonna extend the side kick out, the same position that we did in number 2, except we're gonna go up and down. So you have that active mobility. You can get your kick into any position that you need. So we're going to come up, we're going to bring up that puppet string chamber where we lift up into what I would call the universal chamber. We have the knee at the same level as the foot. We're going to extend out, and then we're just going to go up and down a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you first start, it's going to be tricky. It's about doing a little bit more often. That's the key.
Consistency.
Consistency. One interesting conversation we just had off camera was Brad was just saying that he knows he can kick people in the head, but he can't slowly lift his knee into the angle that he would need to kick somebody in the head. And that's the difference between that active flexibility, that active mobility, and passive mobility. So I could probably move Brad's leg into a position where he'd be doing a head kick, but it's different in terms of if he can develop the strength to be able to put his knee at the perfect angle to throw the head kick, even slowly, or even change it. He'll have so much more control of it that way, he'll be so much more precise that way. That's what we're trying to build. So anyway, that is number 3 of our drills to develop leg control and active mobility. Moving on to drill number 4, we're going to do something called the egg beater. So if you've seen somebody use a speed bag in boxing, they're rotating from their shoulder blade. The ball and socket joint of my shoulder, not the blade, but the ball and socket itself is rotating. This is the same thing that you're going to do with your leg. And it's really, really useful to have that mobility to do kicks like, for example, question mark kick, or to change the target. It can be very confusing for the person to keep up with it. If you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, it's common, isn't it?
Yeah.
Egg beater as like a warm-up, this type of thing,
Yeah, exactly
warming up for the guard. Same thing. So we use the egg beater to develop hip mobility. So we're doing it for the roundhouse kick chamber. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the knee slightly down, and we're going to take the foot over the top, and we're going to egg beat. So if I face the camera directly, I'm making this motion. But you can see that my body and my pelvis, so through here, isn't changing. My pelvis is staying stable, my chest is stable, and I'm egg beating like so. And then when I go the other way, I'm going outwards, the same sort of movement. That leads to roundhouse kick, or to hook kick, or to spinning hook kick, a variety of kicks. So for example, if I do a hook kick, I don't do it like this, because my hip is very stiff there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my back straight, and I'm going to use this circling movement from my hip joint to flick it across. So if I was kicking towards Brad, I'll lift like this, and I'll flick it across like that. Vice versa, my knee could be on the front, and I could be in a more square-on sort of position, like a typical Thai boxing sort of weight on the back leg, ready to check. And I could have my knee facing front, but then I roll and I egg beat my leg over, for example, to kick him either in the body or to roll over and kick him in the head with a shin, right? A lot of people have difficulty doing that rollover movement. They'll either do this, and they'll kind of kick upwards like that, or when they try to roll over, they'll turn their body away and kind of lean too far. So being able to open up your hip with an egg beating type movement like this is a great way to start. If you have trouble doing this, I'll give you a pro tip. Stand straight like this, don't worry about putting your leg to the side, and just egg beat your leg this way. Then see if you can go outwards without changing your body's posture. This is the way to start. Do the other side, just begin with this. This will make a massive difference in how you do it. And it applies to many, many kicks. This one, for example, when I'm going out like that, this is useful for an axe kick. As my leg comes up and down, it's how I beat into an axe kick. This way. So if we were to apply it, if Brad's in an orthodox position, it might be like a fake where I'm kicking here, and then I'm going to take my leg and beat like this. This hip movement allows me to change from that orientation to this orientation.
And by the way guys, all those kicks that Carl was just talking about, you can find on his channel, which we will link in this video as well. So you guys need to go check those out if that sounds a little bit confusing, and there might be a little bit clearer understanding with his hip motion.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. So that was drill number 4 and 5, inward and outwards egg beater. So just to recap those drills that we did a machine gun kick extension this way, we did a side kick extension this way, we did a side kick pulse up and down, we did an inside egg beater, and we did an outside egg beater. And those give you a much greater degree of control in a variety of dimensions that you will use for kicks that you do from a side-on or lateral position. Basically, anytime you're throwing a roundhouse kick, side kick, hook kick, spinning hook kick, etc.
So now you guys have all the basic drills to gain that range of motion that I think is essential in any martial art. Not just MMA. If you're a kickboxer, you should be able to do this as well to the level of Carl if you want to progress to this sport being your career. You can't neglect half your body. It's just, I think it's just stupid, and it's a massive regret of mine that I am not as good as Carl with his legs as I am with my hands.
Just with that area, just with that.
I wish I was. I did have the same skill with my legs, but I am working on it, so guys, so I recommend you doing it as well. Again, thank you very much, Carl, for coming on today. I always love training with you. I love learning from you, and you guys can find heaps more videos of his on his channel, which I'm going to link into this video as well.